This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Welcome in, everybody. This is the Doc John Macaroon, and you're listening to the One-on-One Podcast, where we get to talk to radio personalities, journalists, those in the sports field here in the great city of Detroit. And today, Sean Baligian has taken me up on my offer. We got him in studio. He's here at the office at Sterling Heights. Welcome, Sean. It's great for you to be here.
Thank you very much for having me. I apologize for being about a month late. I hope you can forgive me.
No problem, man. Thank you for taking us up on our offer. You know, you've been, a fixture here in Detroit sports on the radio for quite a bit of time, and it's great to have a chance to talk to you, pick your brain a little bit about the business, how you got into it, and your well over 15-year career in sports radio in Detroit.
Yeah, it really is crazy. I honestly, just last night, I was talking to somebody about it, and like it kind of hit me. I was like, 21 years? Really? Has it been that long that I've been in the business? But yeah, 21 years. And, the next thing you know, you have a couple kids and, all of that stuff. It's just, all kidding aside, I always say this, and it's not just words. It's what a blessing to do something that you love. The day that stops being a reality for me, I think it's time to do something else,
Livonia, Michigan native. You grew up in town. How did you get the bug in sports? What did you follow growing up in sports around town?
I always, I liked everything. I was the proverbial one-track mind. I mean, I really didn't have any hobbies as a kid. It's crazy. I loved sports. Hockey was my first love. Like every other kid, you think, hey, maybe one day I'll go someplace. And then the reality hit me somewhere in my early teens. Wow, I suck, and I'm not going anywhere. So at that point in time, you start kicking around, what do you want to do with your life and everything? And I couldn't think of doing anything else. I really, it's strange. I can't envision doing anything else in life. And I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if it's a bad thing, but, probably around 15 years old, I was like, all right, let's see what we can do to try to get in the business.
And so growing up, what teams did you follow? Were you a Detroit sports guy? Did you have teams that you followed outside of Detroit?
I, first and foremost, half my family comes from the Montreal area, so I was a Habs fan. I was a Montreal Canadiens fan. But obviously, growing up here, you become a fan of the Detroit Red Wings. I was a fan of the Windsor Spitfires in the Ontario Hockey League because I would go to a lot of games as a kid with my grandfather and everything. Michigan State, Ron Mason really was the guy that got me into that because of the hockey camps and everything. The Lions obviously was something that was big for me. It wasn't until later in life. It's crazy because if you knew me back then, and my friends get a big laugh out of this, I liked baseball, but it wasn't like crazy. And having a son that for whatever reason just loves baseball has turned me into a bigger baseball fan than I ever in a million years thought I would be. But when I was a kid, I didn't like it that much. I can't say I disliked it, but now, man, I love baseball. I'm almost mad at myself that I missed out on baseball for so many years, and so we've had season tickets down there now 12 years, 13 years. It's been a while. And, yeah, so like everybody else, I grew up with the Big Four. I always liked college basketball more than the NBA, and that's carried on in my life. When I was younger, the NFL and college were 6 of one, half a dozen the other. I'll tell you what, in the last 20 years, college football has just gone like this. Not that NFL is going down, but for me, I just love college football. I love it, and it grows every year,
So far in your radio career, when just looking up some information on everything that you've covered, broadcasts and shows that you've done, you've always done a wide array of shows covering hockey, OHL hockey, basketball. You have a wide array of interest, and it comes across on your broadcast.
No, thanks. I appreciate that. And it's funny because a lot of times, I know my old partner, the late Tom Kowalski, used to always, play this game when he was on the air. He just, blurt out a year, and I could tell you who won the championships and stuff. I can't explain it. It's just, that's how you grew up. Honestly, it's just, 1986. And I go, That was the Mets over the Red Sox. That was the right off the top of my head, the Bears over the Patriots. It was the Habs over the Flames. You know, I don't know how to explain it. You just knew. And so it's always been that way for me. So as we were talking about before the show, it's funny when I hear the term show prep, it's what I'm doing anyway. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm watching sports at night anyway, and I'm online at night anyway. So like I said, just to reiterate, it is what a blessing, man. You know, there isn't a day that goes by you don't realize it.
So now you're a young adolescent. You're thinking, okay, I think I want to go into sports broadcasting as a career. So what was your education early on in terms of getting into broadcasting?
Well, I was one of those guys, and I think, boy, I'm going to sound like an old guy now. I think it's a different era now. I do tell kids, go out and get your education, go out and get the degree. You know, college wasn't for me, and I think part of it was, you know, I grew up in a family where, you know, I mean, my dad worked his tail off. I have mad respect for him, but they just weren't going to be able to take care of it. So I would work a semester, take a semester off, work a semester, and it just wasn't for me. And, you know, I was fortunate enough to get into specs. And I think specs is one of those things, you get out of it what you put into it. I'm a firm believer in that. And, you know, if you're resolute and you work really hard, I think you can eventually get to goals. And specs allowed me that opportunity, afforded me that opportunity. So for me, I came into the business, I mean, as bright-eyed and bushy-tailed as you can possibly imagine. And this is the one thing I tell kids all the time. And boy, when I say kids, it's that sounds strange. But, you know, I tell, you know, younger people in this business, don't sell yourself that you're going to do this, or you're going to sell or you're going to do that. Because I always use the analogy of a tree. You know, you look at the base of a tree and you're like, oh, okay, I know where this tree's going. And then all of a sudden something might come up that you might really like. And then something else might come up that you really like. So, you know, to be in that position where, I guess the best way to say it, I've been fortunate enough to have choices and stuff. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and nobody gets to where they are by themselves. We all have mentors. We all have individuals that we looked up to. Speak on who are the individuals that were your role models growing up, and in terms of your career at Specs, and who influenced you to become the person that you are now.
Hockey Night in Canada.
Yeah.
No, all kidding aside, I was, and I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, back then you didn't get a lot of Red Wings on television. You know, occasionally they were on Channel 50 with Ray Lane and everything, but I just thought the way they did hockey was outstanding. And, you know, back then there weren't as many hockey fans as there are today. You know, success will obviously do that. I heard Ron Cameron, who's still around doing shows. I heard Ron Cameron on radio, and I thought that was like the coolest thing as a kid. So that was part of it. And, you know, like you said, I mean, once you're in the business, there are people that, you know, really have an influence and take their time to actually help you out and groom you and everything. And one that comes to mind, I guess the guy that I blame most for me even being in this business, he hired me down in Toledo, and now he actually runs WJR. And he's a guy by the name of Mike Wheeler. And he's just, Mike would punch me in the face for saying this. He's just the best guy I've ever worked for, period, end of story. And I don't mean any disrespect to any managers or anything like that, but he just, I think it's that I feel like I owe him something angle, because he took a chance on a kid, and maybe he believed in a kid that at the time didn't so much believe in himself. And that's something you can't repay that. You can't, in your life, you can't repay that.
So Mike was the individual that was at WSPD in Toledo when you were a producer reporter?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, that's exactly it. And, you know, I was fortunate enough to work with another guy who is working down in Cincinnati now, a guy by the name of Scott Sloan, who had been established, that you know, had a modicum of success. And again, for some reason, he took a liking to me, and he's one of the most quality human beings I've ever met. And so when you're paired with guys like that when you're first starting out, that's a stroke of luck. I mean, it really is. I've always told myself, like, young people in the business, I want to treat them the way that those guys treated me, because more often than not, young people in this business, you know, okay, whatever, go get me a coffee, kid, you know, things like that. And those guys, you know, they made me feel part of it and taught me a lot of things. And so I guess the giving back part is I always try to do that with young kids today. And I hope that, you know, there are a few young kids out there that maybe would talk that way about me, I hope.
you graduate specs, and is your first job the producer reporter job at WSPD?
Yeah, I was, again, a stroke of luck. So much of this has to do with luck. I happened to interview down there in the midst of an ownership change. And a lot of times what happens when there's an ownership change is the new guys want the old guys out and they want to bring in their own new guys. And I was part of the new guys. And so time and place is important. It's really important. And I mean, it was really, I think it all happened like 2 weeks before I interviewed. So who knows, maybe 2 months earlier, 2 months later, I don't get the opportunity that I got there.
So now it's your first job. Do you recall your early goals? What were you thinking at the time when you get your first job right out of broadcast school?
I'm not making this up. I remember this like it was yesterday. My second day on the job, I came into work and my boss, a lady named Andy, just a great lady, literally threw the keys to the station vehicle to me and goes, I want you to go down to Bowling Green and cover Bowling Green and Louisiana Tech. Well, I thought I died and went to heaven. It's day 2. Wait a second, you're asking me to go cover a college football game? Are you serious? So I grab the keys, I'm out the door, I start up the car and everything, and then I'm like, where's Bowling Green? So I had to turn off the keys, and I'm like, I can't wait to go, but can you tell me where Bowling Green is? And she kind of gives me this look like, jump on 75 and go 20 miles. You can't miss it. But at that point in time, I mean, it's your second day and you're covering a college football game and everything. So I wanted to do a lot of that. And then an opportunity to get on the air happened. And, again, it was one of those things. Looking back, I don't even know if I knew at the time what I wanted. I knew that I was doing what I wanted, but exactly where I wanted to go. Gosh, that's a great, John. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. I don't think I even knew. I don't. I was like kind of just going with the flow,
Okay, and you worked your way up. In 97, you became the sports director and host of the evening sports show. You talked about, and you covered OHL hockey, CCHA hockey. You were the analyst for both the University of Toledo football and basketball. So right away, you get a sense that you're doing a lot of different things, and you worked your way up relatively quickly. In 2 years, you were doing a lot at that station.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, I still look back, and I mean, just hearing you say that, it's kind of weird. It doesn't usually happen that way, right place at the right time and everything. And again, I had a management team down there that was second to none. They really were. And I think it goes to show you the people that I worked with. Is again, one guy's got a highly rated show down in Cincinnati now. One guy's running, WJR. Wow, I'm so lucky. I was so lucky. I mean, honestly, I was a lucky guy.
Yeah, and then 98, you start doing a part-time shift at WJR Sunday night, taking phone calls. That must have been unbelievable going to WJR relatively early in your career.
Couldn't believe it. And it's a really funny story. The boss at WJR at the time was driving through Toledo on his way to Cedar Point, like with his family, and he heard me on the air. Again, that's luck. There's nothing you can't. That's luck. And he called me, and I thought it was some guy just being a wiseacre. I didn't believe that this guy was the boss at WJR, and so I went and interviewed that Monday, and he hired me that day, and I was on the air. I did a Saturday afternoon show, and then I started doing Sunday shows, not only during Lion season with Greg Landry, but just in principle. And you nailed it. There was that part of you. I was 27. It was before my 28th birthday, and there was that part of you going, I'm on WJR. You know what I mean? As somebody who's a fan of radio, those letters still evoke magic. I mean, they really do. So yeah, it was amazing to me. It was, and I had fun there. I mean, they didn't have anything full time for me at the time, but it didn't matter. I had a full time job. And, as you said, I was doing Toledo football and basketball. And, when the regular play-by-play guy had to do television, I'd do play-by-play. So, I was living the dream,
And now you said you were a fan of radio, and guys like myself grew up listening to yourself, guys like Greg Henson and WDFN. Who did you listen to at the time in your mid-20s? Who influenced you maybe on the radio at the time? Because it was just a beginning phase, and a lot of people kind of said, you know what? Once they started listening to shows and hosts and things like that, they became hooked.
When I was driving to Toledo, when I was commuting down to Toledo, because I still lived up here in Livonia, I would listen to this new station called WDFN, and Stoney and Wojo in the afternoon, and they were iconic. Art Regner was a Livonia guy. So I thought it was cool that a Livonia guy, even if he was a Livonia Franklin guy, Stevenson in the house, even if he was a Livonia Franklin guy, I thought it was really, it was, what he did was cool, and he was a hockey fan. And as you mentioned, Greg Henson, I thought what they were doing was new. I thought what they were doing was brash. And I liked the fact that a majority of people thought they weren't going to make it. I thought that was cool. I really do like being the little train that thinks it can. You know what I mean? And so I kid you not, I always would listen to that station and go, man, that'd be really cool to work at that station one day,
And so how did you end up getting to WDFN in 1999?
Greg Hansen, in a word. Well, that would be two, Greg Hansen. In a name, I saw Greg at opening day 1999 at Tiger Stadium. And I went up and introduced myself, and he looked at me and he goes, Sean Baligian. I was like, yeah. And he goes, I've heard you on WJR. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, what the hell are you doing at WJR? And I looked at him and I was like, what do you mean? He was like, well, why aren't you at a station like our station? All we do is sports. And I was like, were you offering me a job? So people can say what they want about Henson. I'll always be forever grateful to him for giving me that chance, always. And 2 months later, I was working at WDFN, and it's one of those things. It's like, again, pinch me, how did this all happen like this? And, but it's funny how things like that work out,
Now, you spoke a lot about, talking to youngsters and how you want to treat them. For those that are listening that maybe want to get into sports broadcasting, what kind of advice would you give them? Maybe someone who's at Specs right now, who maybe interning. What advice would you give them in terms of getting into a field that's really relatively tough, relatively speaking?
Oh, it's so much different today than it was then. Don't give up. I had a father, I love my dad, but I had a father that told me all the time, oh, it's so tough to get in that business. So why don't you go be a police officer? Because my dad was a police officer, and all the respect in the world to people that are police officers, it's not for me. And as I told my dad then, and I still tell him to this day, I can't envision doing what you do. And I mean no disrespect when I say that. My brain, I couldn't do it. I daydream about sports all day, and I get fired and things like that, making little brackets and things like that. I always say this, and this remains true for me. Be a sponge. Be a sponge. Take everything in. The day you think you got it all figured out, you're out of your mind. And I'm still 45 years old. I don't mind advice. I don't mind, I don't mind criticism and things like that. So be a sponge, and especially when you're young, shut up. Like, you don't know what you don't know yet. You really don't. And that's not a disrespectful shut up either. It's more, hey, dude, just listen, observe, and things like that. So, which I wasn't always good at as a kid, but thankfully there were, like I said, there were a couple guys that were real patient with me and kind of showed me the ropes and, got me on the right path.
Okay, so 1999, you get your own radio show, and was that It Is What It Is with Sean Baligian at the time in 99?
No, that was Eric Pate. It was the third shift. I worked with Eric Pate for a year, and that was really, I mean, what a year that was. I became a father for the first time. My son Jack was born in the summer of 99, and then Eric and I did a show for a year together, and it was, 7 to 10 was a weird shift at the time and everything, but just to be on, a station like The Fan, a station that I listened to from the day it came on the air, just to be on The Fan was just awesome. It was really cool.
So now you're doing a sports radio show. Did you kind of envision that it would be caller driven, or how did you kind of, formulate the topics, or what kind of show did you want to do early on when you first started doing radio shows? What was your dream vision of a show that you were going to be on?
I always wanted to be somebody who was fair. I think it's important in our business. Sometimes, people know you're a fan of a team, and we're all guilty at times of being a little slappy, so to speak, and being a little bit too much of a homer. I always wanted to do that. I always wanted to be informative, because there are some times you listen to a radio show and it's you hear somebody make a mistake, and it's like, dude, come on. And everybody's going to make a mistake, but it's when you make 2, 3, 4, 5, 30 mistakes. It's like, come on, so you have to be geeky. You have to be passionate about it. Sports are fun. The sports are fun. There's a time to kill. Don't get me wrong. I did Lion post-game shows for a lot of years. So there's a time to kill a team. But I think there are too many people that are just like, it's almost like they sound depressed doing a radio show. I don't know. I get fired up talking about sports,
Exactly. And so now there's, now we're sitting in 2016 and there's such a proliferation of sports talk. You got 24-hour networks. You got so many more ways of getting this. And it's such an amazing thing. Did you think at the time that the medium of sports broadcasting and sports radio would get to this level?
No, I don't think anybody.
What do you think it was going to be?
I thought that it would continue to grow, but I didn't think that it would, become what it's been. I mean, there are multiple sports stations in multiple cities, and not just big cities. Grand Rapids has 2 sports stations, for example. Toledo has a couple of sports stations. So, I mean, in a million years, I didn't think that you would see a scenario like this play out. But here's the problem with that is, I mean, the good news is there are more options. The bad news is there are more people that want to be a part of those options. So, for young people getting into the business, it is a give and take situation,
Now, Sean, you've had some great bits that you've done on the air, and they've resonated, to this day. I wrote it down. I would listen, and the bit you did with Mita was classic. Mita was unbelievable. Men eating all the tasty animals. Talk about that. You championed that, and really was a way to interact with the fans and really express, a point that you took.
It was, at the time, PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, they came out with some, pretty fierce advertising and everything. And, don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't want to see animals, be tortured and things like that. But shut your mouth when you tell me to stop eating meat. You know what I mean? So I came up with the idea. Let's just have a barbecue. We'll invite a bunch of people. Come over and it'll be communal living. Well, if you want to bring a pack of hot dogs or you want to bring 10 pounds of brisket, I don't care. And it's really funny because I think at the time my radio station didn't quite know what to do with it. And somebody, without mentioning names, literally said to me, I think that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. And I said to them, yeah, summertime, sports fans, barbecue. What a horrible idea. You can't put those 3 things together and everything. So the first year, I'm not even joking. If 50 people showed up, I would have been happy. A lot of people showed up. And then, it culminated, I think the last year, we were out at, the former CompuWare Arena, which is now USA Hockey Arena out in Plymouth, and the parking lot was full. I don't even want to put an estimate on there. 10,000? I don't know. I mean, it was absolutely packed. But problem is it also became kind of a circus because now people wanted to be a part of it. Now people wanted to advertise and things like that. And it's part of the business, but I never wanted it to be that. I just wanted it to be grassroots, a bunch of guys. And, hey, if you want to bring some food, if you're, a restaurant and you want to bring some food, we'll mention it. You don't have to buy a spot. You know what I mean? And, unfortunately that's the dark side of the business. It's reality. And once that started to happen, I just said no more. I didn't want to do it. I said, you find somebody else to do it. I don't want to do it anymore. But it was a good 5 years. We had a good 5-year run.
Okay, so it's a nice hot summer night, maybe with an adult beverage. What does Sean Baligian like to cook up?
Oh, are you kidding me? If I'm home a couple days in a row, you know the routine. If you want to do barbecue, you got to do it right. You got to do it low and slow. So it's a process. But if it's I just got off of work and the Tigers are on a road game or anything, put a few sausages on the barbecue. I mean, just sausages. You can't go wrong with sausages as far as I'm concerned. Polish sausage, Italian sausage, spicy sausage, whatever. It's all good. Get yourself some onion, get yourself some green pepper. It's all good. But if I'm home for a couple days in a row, I'm going to work in a brisket. I'm going to work in a couple racks of ribs, things like that. But I can do it every night. On it, and boy, if my family's listening, they'll tell you I could barbecue every night, no problem.
Now, you spoke about the dark side of the business, and I know it can be tough in radio. So you're working at WDFN, and all of a sudden, you hear early, I believe it was
09.
Yep. Early in 09, you hear that the station's going to change formats, and everybody, for the most part, all the hosts are going to, lose their jobs. That must have been a tough time, knowing that you've done a lot in radio, and all of a sudden you're at a spot maybe that you're enjoying, you're in the career, but the position was eliminated and the station switched formats. The station went to had some issues.
Yeah, well, here it should, and I miss the times that we had. I do. But at the same time, as crazy as it sounds, I think we all knew it was coming. When 1270 switched to FM, we begged and pleaded our bosses, like begged and pleaded, move to FM. And they were like, no, we've won before. We'll continue to win. Well, we knew we were dead. So I saw it coming. And I mean this in all sincerity. I have nothing to hang my head about or be ashamed about, because I told myself with about 6 months to go, because I cannot stress to you enough, no matter what anybody tells you, we all knew it was coming. Okay. We knew it was coming. And I said, I'm going out with my head held high, and I'm not going to mail this in. I'm going to do my very best until the final show. And we didn't know when the final show was coming until day of. Day of, you knew. And it was a scenario where when it happened, and you move on. Honestly, no regrets, no tears, nothing like that. It was fun. I keep in contact with a few of the guys that I work with, but it was over. Make no mistake about it.
Okay, and now you've had also a couple stints at ESPN 96.1 in Grand Rapids. What's the Grand Rapids market like compared to the market here in Detroit?
A lot similar. Okay. Their likes, their tastes. I mean, I do basically the same show that I do here. They want to talk about the Lions. They want to talk about Michigan State. In my humble opinion, I think they're bigger college fans on that side of the state than even over here. In my humble opinion, that's what I found in my time working there. It was a great market. To have the Griffins in the backyard was really cool. I had a blast working there. I really did. And it happened at a time where I didn't know if I wanted to do radio anymore. Like, honestly, after Killer passed, I didn't know if I wanted to do radio anymore. And it came up, and I had a blast there. I really did. It was 4 fun years.
Are the callers that call up as passionate, as knowledgeable as in Detroit? Because in Detroit, you have some funny fans, you have angry fans, you got fans that have really no clue what they're talking about. How are the callers in Grand Rapids?
They're the passion. They're very passionate about the Lions. I mean, whether people want to admit it or not, the NFL is king. I mean, it is. And even if you're not an NFL fan first, I think everybody has to acknowledge that the NFL is king. Very passionate about college football. There's a pretty good dividing line out there. And if I may, even the Notre Dame fans, because you got to remember, they're not that far away from Notre Dame. It's so, it's just I think an hour and a half south, if I'm not mistaken. So, it was pretty good. That would fire up about mid-July, and oh man, it was pretty good. It was a good time there.
Yeah. Now you spoke about, hosting Lions post-game shows, and at the time it was a struggle. And I, was a season ticket holder with my friend in the Millen era. And so we could count on our, 2 hands how many victories there were. And a specific memory that I recall was a season-ending game where it was against the Bengals, and the Lions, one of the Lions' last home games. And the idea was, let's just all show up in orange and black and dress up like Bengals fans. Now, granted, this is after you had that fan running in the stands with the fire Millen. It became a spectacle. You kind of championed a position, the Millen Man March, back in December of 2005. And, when you speak on it now, you kind of go, what did I do? But that was something else that you did there in 2005.
You know what was really funny about that, and that was the misnomer. I personally didn't say wear orange, walk out, or anything like that. That wasn't me. That was the other station, and I can't blame them. It's called blurring the lines, because we kind of created an event. The event got buzz, and then they want to be a part of it. Well, everybody should wear orange, and everybody should walk out. For me, I just wanted enough. Why is this guy still in place? Stop this. Can't you see what's going on and everything? So it was one of those things. It was, I've said it before, it was the most hectic weekend of my life. It was just crazy because you don't understand all the ramifications. I don't think it hit me till late in the process. Like, what if something happens? What if there is that idiot while we're marching that decides to do something dumb? And, God forbid it set off a chain reaction and everything. So I was young and dumb. I stand adamantly behind the idea, adamantly, because, think about it. If they would have gotten rid of Matt Millen then, at least it's 3 less years of destruction, But, Mr. Ford was resolute in keeping his guy until his own son said something about it. But to do an event like that, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. It's for sanity purposes. It was, but you know what? Again, no regrets. It happened, and you move on and you learn from it. You know what I mean?
No, it was unbelievable. I mean, you had a protest for an organization that gave a guy that didn't deserve it an extension. It was unbelievable. And the Lions to this day are still now just coming out of it. So that was an unbelievable event, but one that you realize, wow, the power of radio, the power of persuasion, the message that I can come up with these ideas is really unbelievable. The power of radio.
It was amazing. It really, I mean, the way that people responded to it, and, you know, so many people showed up and so many people helped us, you know, I mean, because again, you know, you get the game day and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, there's going to be like 1,000 people. Do we have security? So like people that I got to know from the business, I kind of stretched them out every 10 feet. You know, hey, just in case anybody, just you're with me, you're speaking for me, you know, and everything. But everybody behaved themselves, and it was, you know, in the end, it worked out. But leading up to it, there was just too much. There's too much stress, and just because like the reality hits you. I'll never forget driving down there that morning. I was like, you know, if something happens, I'm going to be fired. And you know, it's really, you think about it, because at the time, you know, my son was 6, my daughter was almost a year. And you're like, you know, so, but yeah, I don't regret it. I'll never do something like that again. I'll state that for the record, but you know, it was crazy.
So now it's been 2 months. You're at Detroit Sports 105.1, hosting the Sean, Maz, and Mark show Monday through Friday, noon to 3. How's the transition been now? Coming back from Grand Rapids, you're hosting a late afternoon show, 3 to 6. Now you're hosting a midday show. How's the transition been now to Detroit Sports 105.1?
I love it. It's in my opinion, they're doing it the way that it's supposed to be done. It's a sports show, and when I say that, I mean no disrespect to anybody else. You know, so often, you know, when you say something, you know, oh, it's because, you know, this station or that station's doing so well. It's just the non-sport stuff isn't for me. It isn't for me, and you know, the other station in town's having a lot of success and all of that. It's just not something that I think I could work in. It's not something I enjoy listening to all that much. And I don't mean disrespect, because there are some guys there that really know their sport. Like Mike Valeni, you can say whatever you want about Mike. Mike knows his stuff, you know, and I think he's incredibly entertaining and stuff. It's the non-sport stuff that makes me turn it. And, you know, they wanted to do a sports show. And, you know, I knew Maz from back in the day at JR. And I just, you know, I've known Mark Fellhauer from a distance for a long time, but I've only really got to know him the last couple months, and I feel like I've known him my entire lifetime. I mean, he's just we just, you know, in my opinion, we've clicked. You know, he might tell you that he hates my guts and everything, but we really clicked. There's just a good vibe in the building, and it reminds me of DFN back in the day. You know, like, we're gonna make it work. It might take 2-3 years, but we're going to make it work. And, you know, we eventually did at DFN, and I'm convinced that we will at 105.1.
No, that's excellent. And now you're hosting a 3-man show. Is there a challenge sometimes versus hosting your own show or a 2-man show? Sometimes people say, well, maybe people might fight for the mic, but the show seems, I listen regularly, the show seems like it's easily transitioned. You guys are flawless, true professionals. But is there a challenge with 3 guys hosting a radio show?
I think I overthought it before it happened. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? I asked myself that same question, like, you know, before it happened, like, okay, you know, are there too many voices in here? You know, all of that. And then, you know what, once we started doing it, it's just conversation. That's it. It's just, that's the way I've always wanted to be. I don't want to have lectures and things like that. Let's just have conversation. Now, sometimes during the course of conversation, you might have to lecture a guy for being an idiot or whatever, but, it's conversation, and now it kind of seems odd not to do it that way. You know, we're just 3 dudes sitting around in the neighborhood pub, and, you know, just having a sports conversation. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, what goes into the creation of a 3-hour radio program? Now, Detroit's a top 20 market. You know, I believe it's around a 12 market. It's a big time thing. Everybody loves sports in Detroit. A lot of people listen. There's a lot of attention, a lot of callers. What goes into making a 3-hour sports show in a market like Detroit?
I have always been of the opinion, and I know a lot of people in the business don't agree with it, but, you know, I've always been of the opinion, I don't ever want to come in and grab a piece of paper and write out a script, because I think it'll sound scripted. In my humble opinion, now some guys can make it work. I've never wanted to script things. You know, we chat, we talk amongst ourselves the night before, we text each other, maybe send emails, hey, this, and this. And then we roll into the studio. We know what's there, But there's nothing on a sheet of paper that says, well, we're going to do this. The only thing is on a sheet of paper is like, okay, at 1:50, we're talking to Jeff Blashill.
Okay.
At 2:15, we're going to span the globe and we're going to talk to some guy from Alabama and some guy from Clemson and, some guy from Florida, whatever the case may be. So I want it, and I hope it comes across as conversation, because you know what? It is conversation. We're just having conversation.
And now, were there ever any challenges in your radio career working with producers who maybe didn't see that vision and tried to maybe go with a stereotype of how a radio show should go? Because the biggest relationship that I believe a host will have is with his producer. And did you ever have challenges with producers trying to maybe take the show in a direction that you didn't want to go in?
No.
That's good.
No, I'm
lucky.
I'm racking my brain. No, I mean, I can name all my producers to this day. I mean, right off the top of my head, and I'm just going through it in my mind. No, but you're absolutely right. You have to have a like vision. It doesn't mean you have to be exactly alike. And I think any producer that's worked for me will say the same thing. There are some times where I tell them to screw off, and there are some times that they tell me I'm an idiot and we should do it their way. And sometimes you listen to them. Not all the time. And there are more times that I probably should have listened to them. But, you get emotionally involved in something. But no, I've been very fortunate in that regard. I don't think I've ever had, there's nobody that hammered me. No, That's pretty cool. You're right.
Talk about luck.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
Pretty
you have
cool.
Great relationships with the people that, and talking to people who are in the field, they say, you have to be someone that's easily relatable, that can get along with everything. Just like in sports, you got to be a good teammate and willing to go with the punches and be able to be flexible. And that makes a solid team and a solid working relationship. And it sounds like you've been able to really have those relationships in the business.
I hope so. I'm sure there have been times that I've come across as really hard-headed. And it's funny. Oftentimes you hear what other people say, and hard-headed is one word that comes to mind. And, I've taken that to heart, and I'm trying not to be as hard-headed. But I think you get to a point in time where you know what you want, that sometimes even you, though you're telling yourself not to overthink it, sometimes you even overthink it, and that's something, again, the day you think you have all the answers, you don't, So sometimes it's important to listen to somebody else that maybe, is willing to set you straight.
You've been in the business for quite a while. Even in the business of sports radio, it's changed. There's much more access with Twitter, with text messaging a radio station, with, remotes and things like that. There's much more access to the guys, in town. So do you feel like social media has maybe taken sports radio and made it a little bit more negative, a little bit more challenging? Because you say something, you make a simple comment. I like Matthew Stafford. 50 messages. What is this? What are you thinking? You don't deserve to be here. I'm calling the guy for your job. I'm like, it's just an opinion, man. Relax.
It is the biggest, I think the biggest thing. And now there are people out there that do it on purpose. The people hear what they want to hear angle has always been in existence. But now I think, this is the age of trolls and things like that. And, I think for me, a lot of times what I like to go on and have conversations and stuff, and I don't mind it on Facebook at all. You and I talk. Mm-hmm. I take hiatuses from Twitter, though.
Okay.
Like
you're currently on one.
Oh, I've been on it. Yeah, I don't know if I think this time, I think we might be done, to be honest with you. But
okay.
No, honestly, it was November 20th. It was after Michigan State beat Ohio State. That night I was just like, Thanksgiving's coming up, and I think I'm just going to take a little break. And then after Thanksgiving ended, I was like, gosh, this was healthy. I'm going to stay away another week, and then another week, and then another week. So it's a couple months now. And it's good though. Overall, it's good. You can't let 10% of the people or 15% of the people do the talking. But for me, it's one of those things. I mean, my schedule is so busy. A lot of times when I come home, I just want to come home. And I want to go back to being a dad and husband and things like that. So I think when I can leave it at work, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
And something that maybe I could talk to you about is we built our platform basically through social media. And of course, you hear hate, you hear things that, you may maybe not like it, but, kind of the attitude of like Jimmy Kimmel's mean tweets. You use it as a way to laugh. Like, this is something that someone would type me. So I like everything. I don't retweet or bad comments, but you read everything and you take it with the attitude that it is, and it's helped us grow. I actually am so happy that there's Twitter in sports media, because at least it makes it more accessible if you want to message someone in a positive way. I mean, I've had contacts with radio hosts, with program directors just through Twitter. And it's a great way to be more connected and really be more engaged with the audience. So I'm a big proponent of Twitter. I love it.
Oh, I don't get me wrong. I do. I mean, it has its place. For me, it gets to be too much. I like to, probably to the the displeasure of a lot of people. I'm a positive person. I'm somebody who I try to look at positives on things, and I think sometimes the negativity just bogs you down. The negativity just bogs you down, and it's
for sure. I understand completely where those would say, "Oh my God, this is too challenging." Now you do radio, but also Sunday nights, 11 p.m. Fox 2 Sportsworks. There's Sean Baligian. You do television now. You've had a great relationship with Fox 2 for a number of years now. You do the Sportsworks program. How do you like television as opposed to radio?
Never thought in a million years that somebody would pay to put my mug on television, and look at me.
How did that come about, that opportunity with Fox 2?
2002, their former sports director who just retired, Glenn, called me and said, would you fill in on a Friday night? Because back then they used to do a Friday night show too. And I did it a few times, and then I got to know Dan, and Dan Miller's he's just a class act all the way. And I'm fortunate enough to call him a friend. And their sports director, Greg Canner, again, fortunate enough to call him a friend. We just all got along, and then they asked me, hey, would you do the Sunday show? And then that led into doing some hockey stuff for them, which led into doing the Lion pregame show that we do, Lions Game Day Live. And I've been a part of that since 2011. So yeah, man, it's pretty cool. And to call some games, locally on television, whether it be state champs or Comcast, things like that, pretty cool. But the thing at Fox that I've always appreciated is they want you to be you. You know what I mean? I mean, don't get me wrong, you have to dress up and stuff like that, but if I don't want to shave and I like growing the scruffy beard, they're cool with it. Honestly, so that's what I've always respected about the guys at Fox. It's just there's a great vibe there. I mean, the whole staff are just great people. Armani and Woody and Jen and Dan and Greg Canner, and I mean, just great people. So to be a very small part of it, yeah, man, it's pretty cool.
That's very cool. So now you've been working in the business for well over 15 years. Do you have new goals for yourself now at Detroit Sports 105.1? What is your current goals, currently now at the new station?
Have fun. Everything changes when you have kids. It really does. There have been opportunities that have come up in the last few years that if you would have told me 16 years ago, I would have said no to. I would have called you crazy. But being dad is the number one job in my life. And, my son's 16 and he's a junior. And I'm going to try to get in as much time with him in the next year and a half until he goes to college as I possibly can. And my daughter is 10, and she still loves her daddy and still says, I love you, daddy, every day. And if that doesn't, hit you in the heartstrings, nothing will. So, soon enough they'll hate me. Soon enough they'll hate me and not want me around. And I guess I'll have to think about it. But right now, I guess I'm living in the moment, which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool because I think for the longest time you're kind of looking forward to the next thing, and I haven't looked forward to the next thing in a while, and it's pretty cool.
We're here sitting in an office in Sterling Heights, Michigan. We're podcasting. This is a digital, recording that will be put out, rather quickly and things like that. So podcasting is now another avenue, an extension of sports radio. You get into any podcast, you get into any kind of different forms of sports entertainment or media?
Something that I started doing a couple years ago with a bunch of guys that I know, we do something called the High School Hockey Report. And, prep football in the area gets so much coverage as well it should. Prep basketball as well, and we just wanted to do something that kind of acknowledged all the great high school hockey going on in the area. And wouldn't you know, I mean, we get so many hits on these things, and you know what it is? Because there's nowhere else to hear it. There's no place else where you can go where you can actually hear people talking about.
Where can they go to get the high school hockey report?
It's just the High School Hockey Report, and I'll put it out on Facebook and things. Actually, we're doing a show tomorrow, so I'll put up a link, or you can. Gosh, I even forget what the site is because my buddy puts it out there. But I just put the link up like on my Facebook page and stuff like that. But it was so cool because at first it was just something we would have a conversation, maybe a coach here or there. And now we like have a waiting list of coaches that want to come on. Like one week we'll talk to a guy from the Grand Rapids area. The next week we'll talk to a guy from the UP, and the next guest in a particular show might be a guy from, Livonia. So that's something I really like to do because, people don't want to hear that in mass on the radio. Mm-hmm. So at least you can do something like that and say, here, if you want to listen to it, here in this show, we have a coach from Division I, a coach from Division II, and a coach from Division III from all over the state. So that's just, call that a labor of love. I'm not doing that for anything. Like there's no money involved. Mm-hmm. There are no sponsors involved. I'm just doing it to do it because I really enjoy the prep high school scene. I really do. I think it's underrated. And they're developing guys to go on to next levels and stuff like that. So, hey, listen, I mean, there's so many good podcasts out there right now, and I'll be sure to put this up on my wall or whatever it's called on Facebook. But I think it's fantastic that people are doing things like this, and it's a good listen, because again, for me, other people go home and like watch some dumb television show, not me. What game's on, or can I listen to this podcast? Can I do this and everything? So it's cool. The more the merrier. The more the merrier.
Exactly. And again, you've been a trailblazer, a pioneer. People like yourself who've done this have allowed for us to kind of say, you know what, I can do this. And you've been an inspiration. So it's greatly appreciated. And really, to get a chance to say, I've listened to you and listened to your shows across, several years. And it's a great opportunity to do this, to be able to chat with you.
Thank you. You're making me blush. You just,
mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right, let's talk about some current events and some common sports debates that people get into. All right, Barry Sanders or Emmitt Smith?
If you're talking about all around, you have to say Emmitt Smith. And I know people around here hate it. Who do I want on my team? Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders. If you're telling me pick one in the draft, I'm picking Barry Sanders. I don't think Emmitt Smith gets enough credit. I don't. I've always felt that way. It was the line. He blocked. He caught out of the backfield. All of that, but I have to go with Barry.
Okay. Matthew Stafford, is he the guy for the Detroit Lions? Will the Detroit Lions regret if they give him an extension? He's the quarterback for the next 10 years.
I think he is what he is. I think he's a good quarterback, and that's it.
Is he the most polarizing figure in Detroit sports at this time?
Absolutely, positively, and I don't understand why. For the life, I don't get it, because you know what? The argument is we've become a society of extremes. You have one guy say he sucks. You have the other guy say he's great. You're both wrong. He doesn't suck and he's not great. I hope that he can graduate to being great, but let's talk about it when he is great. You know what I mean? And I think he's a good quarterback. And with that being said, there isn't a better option out there right now. This is our quarterback. I don't want to change quarterback, but he has to be better. He has to be better. And I'm glad that he knows he has to be better.
Exactly. And so to champion the other side, people will say, you know what? We saw Tom Brady in his first couple years. He's got a ring already, and he's nowhere near the number one pick. Unfortunately, in some situations, you are a product of the expectations. When you come out and you're the number one pick, there's maybe an expectation that you're going to be the guy. And within 7 or 8 years, I do believe the people that are off the train are saying, you know what? It's time to say, you know what? 7 years is enough. Going into your 8th year, how much longer are we going to wait to get the organization to the Super Bowl and some playoff wins?
And I think that's where they're at right now. I mean, that's why I'll keep saying it. He is what he is. He's a good quarterback. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on what side you look at it, I refer to it as quarterback purgatory, because there isn't a better option out there. There isn't. I don't want to draft one of these kids. And you know what? There's no free agent bonus baby that you're going to bring in here. This is your quarterback. We all better hope that he gets better.
Have you ever been close to being lines free?
Never.
Okay, exactly. Never. It's been tough, though.
Can't do it.
When you have a season in 2008 where they go 0-16, it's tough to support an organization like that. But again, we're all fans. We want the home team to win, but it's really tough with the moves that they've made. And when you just look at the big picture, now it's easier to do when you go season by season, definitely. But when you look at the big picture, one playoff win since 91, man, it's tough.
I kicked around the idea in 1998, and no.
Right. What would we do on Sunday? What would we do?
I love this team. I do. Now, some people might listen to me and disagree with that because I'm a hater and all that. But I'll give you an example. Like, people, they finish 7-9, right? I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn what you did in the second half of the season. I don't care if it was 6-2. I don't care if it was 7-1. You finish 7-9. That's not good enough. Well, people will go, you're a hater. And so in turn, what I do is I go, well, do you like 7-9? Do you like it? I don't like 7. What's there to like about 7-9? So, unfortunately, you get some of that. But, again, it's one of those things where, it is one of those things that I look at the Lions and I've come to grips with the fact that I'm just never going to quit them. I'm never going to quit them. So
despite the headaches they give us, that's good. I think it's a good thing because it's football. And they're lucky because there's only so many opportunities to watch.
Yep.
They get a window in the fall and winter, and that's it. 16 weeks, and whatever happens, happens. So,
yep.
And we do get that 9-month break to kind of decompress and say, okay, let's start this nonsense all over again.
Exactly.
All right. Is this Hockey Town, or is this a bandwagon fan base with hockey?
It is absolutely not Hockey Town. It is. It's a wonderful marketing tool. It's a great marketing ploy. It's Red Wing Town, and but the Red Wings certainly aren't number one. I don't like to say that as a hockey fan, but how
do we get hockey to be talked about more on the radio or picked up around town? It's a great sport to watch. If you're a true sports fan and you watch it live, hockey's great. But how could hockey advance its position as a sport?
I think too many people in this area, you're not going to win people over. They have their mind made up about hockey, and it's just never going to grab them. So I don't think it's going to happen here. And I know there's some people out there that are going to disagree with me, but I always say to people, I mean, how many people know that the U.S. National Team and Development Program even play here? Mm-hmm. That you can go see the best under 18 players, the best under 17 players in your own backyard in Plymouth. And, I did the Whalers broadcast for so many years. People didn't know what the Ontario Hockey League was. And, again, people don't support high school hockey, en masse. Not a lot of people are following college hockey unless one of them are doing really well. And certainly Red's done such a tremendous job for so many years at Michigan. So hockey fans are, in my opinion, the most passionate fans out there. So we'll make a lot of noise. I just wish there were more of us.
Okay, should the Pistons move the Palace downtown and have all four big teams down there in Detroit? It's booming with the new Red Wings Arena. You got Ford Field, Comerica Park, relatively close, a booming downtown. The last piece is the Pistons.
I'd love it because then the ownership could still keep the Palace of Auburn Hills as a concert place, a place to have other events. Yeah, call me wishful, call me dreamy, but yeah, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
Favorite venue in town that you like to go watch a sporting event at?
Comerica Park.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. It's the place with my son. Okay. So it's like personal. Like that's our place. Does that make sense?
Yep. Lafayette or American?
$1 million question. I always answer this wrong. For some reason, it seems like I'm in the minority, but I go with American.
Okay.
Yeah,
why?
I go with American. I think for me, Lafayette reminded me of going to hockey games and everything as a kid. And for American, I like their crunch. Mm-hmm. I like their crunch. The emotional pull. The emotional pull is to Lafayette because my buddies and I used to go down there after Red Wings game. I mean, that was always such a cool event. Get your barbecue chips and everything. But I like the crunch with American. I do. I like the crunch.
Great being in Detroit. Great sports town. All the big sports, college teams. We've been blessed to have the opportunity to watch and cover championship teams. Your favorite championship run that you've watched or witnessed, or that you got most invested in emotionally?
Wow. I think the Tigers pre-business, the Tigers in '84 was just, even not as a big baseball fan, there was just something so magical about that whole year. From Morris's no-hitter to 35-5 to, there's something so magical about it. Wow. Gosh, that's a great question. 08 Wings, that was pretty cool. I'm going to go with the 04 Pistons. Honestly, I'm going to go with the 04 Pistons. That was just an incredible run. And with them being at our radio station at the time and everybody thinking that they were going to get clobbered by the Lakers, there was a lot of satisfaction in that.
Yeah, a collection of guys that nobody thought, a bunch of cast-offs.
Yeah.
And you're like, you know what? We're going up against the Lakers, an old-time matchup, and everyone was like, it's going to be dominated by Shaq and Kobe, and we handled it in the classic 5-game sweep. It was awesome.
It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. Michigan State in 2000. I remember Michigan State in 79, with Magic. So I'll go with the 04 Pistons. Yeah, I'll go with the 04 Pistons.
Okay, now, can you imagine we're sitting here in an age where Michigan State is coming off of a national college football playoff? You're a state guy, I'm a state guy. We witnessed years and years of John L. Smith, bunch of, seasons where we didn't have success. We just were always second fiddle to Michigan. This 5-year period has been such a godsend, such a blessing in just the opportunity to cover and watch a team that you're passionate about. It's been a good run for state for sure.
Oh, no, the guys that I work with give me a hassle about this because, I think for the longest time, Michigan State Spartan fans had a tough time even getting their arms wrapped around winning the Big Ten. And then that happened. And then you're like, well, yeah, I mean, New Year's Six bowl and finishing top 5. And then that happened. And then this year, I think you have to see it first before you can get it, before you can, wow, you could get your brain around it. Yeah, why not getting there and everything? So you always thought about it, but you didn't think it would happen. And I mean, what D'Antonio's done, you don't have to defend it anymore. I don't have to defend it. And if you want to say, yeah, Alabama killed him, well, Alabama kills a lot of people. But, to get there, you have to win your division first. And if you win your division, you have to win the Big Ten. And that's something they've been able to do 2 out of the last 3 years. And there's something to be said about that. And not to mention, as you said, in 2010, being a co-conference champion and winning the division in 2011. So that's a lot of hardware. But hey, listen, it's going to be very tough in this conference. Michigan State isn't going anywhere. Ohio State isn't going anywhere. And Michigan's only going to get better. So it's going to get very tough in this division.
Sean Baligian, host of Sean Maz and Mark, Detroit Sports 105.1, has been kind enough to share stories, talk about his radio career, and talk about some current issues in Detroit sports. Now, we'll get you out of here on this. We ask all guests that come on, and just to get a sense of what you would do in this situation. You got 4 tickets. Any sporting event, any venue. You could take any 3 people, dead, alive, famous, family, friends. What event would you go to, and who would you take?
I would definitely go to a Stanley Cup Finals game. I would definitely, no question about that. Can I pick the old Montreal Forum?
Of course.
All right, I'm going to pick the old Montreal Forum. I'm going to take the man that I respect more than anybody. I named my son after my grandfather. I would take Colonel Harlan Sanders, the Colonel, Kentucky Fried Chicken, because we could have a tailgate and the Colonel could make some of that chicken for us. Gosh, the 4th person? Wow, that's a great question. Mark D'Antonio. Because I want to see with my own 2 eyes that he's capable of smiling. So when he's eating the Colonel's chicken, I would see Mark D'Antonio smile, and I'd take a selfie with smiling Mark D'Antonio. So how's that?
That was Sean Baligian. Thank you so much for visiting us. It was a great chat. An hour just flies by when you're talking to people that you want to talk to. And when they say time flies when you're having fun, I just blinked and an hour went by.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Call me anytime.
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.